What's up, Toxic here with another episode of Battle Bros, episode 4. Today, joining me is Seb
Hello.
and Savage.
Oh, how you going there?
Today we talking about Age of Sigmar and basically just going over kind of our thoughts on the game now that it's been out for a while, and if it changed our mind on the game and if things have changed since our original video back on Rage Hammer, where we kind of talked about Age of Sigmar and people's responses to that. So first we're going to talk about just kind of our thoughts on it now, how things are going, and then we're going to then move on and look at some of the comments we got on that original video and just kind of discuss those. It's going to be okay, Seb.
As long as you hold my hand.
So Age of Sigmar's been out for quite a while now. I don't know exactly, but at least 6 months, I guess. We were pretty okay on it when it first came out, giving it the benefit of the doubt that it was going to be okay, and a couple of us, bought some models, and we're keen to give it a go. Seb, with the most experience in the game, we'll let you go first and kind of give your thoughts about it now, now that it's been out for a little while.
Okay. I still think it's a lot of fun. I need to be honest and say I've not played it in quite a long time, but then due to kind of family health issues, I was out of all kind of tabletop gaming for nearly 6 months. So I probably would still be playing a fair bit of it if it wasn't for all that stuff, because I started playing 40k and everything else in between. But I think you've got beautiful models. You've got simple and decently used rules, which are free to be accessed. You've got the all the big fluff books and things, adding far more lore and more missions and all that sort of stuff. I think it's a good system, and I think it's fun. And if it does pick back up again at our local store, then I would happily get a game. And yeah, I still think it's a lot of fun, even though excitement seems to be dying down locally.
Yeah, it's I never got into it myself. I bought the starter set, so Games Workshop got my money there. So I guess that's a thing. And then I didn't really kind of get into it from then. I was kind of like, if I wanted to get into it, but I didn't know kind of what to play, what army to play, and it still goes back to like the original time when we were talking about it, and I was saying like, I like the release, but I feel like if they were going to release it, they should have released it with more content and more up-to-date rules than just here's some stuff for these two armies, and the other stuff is like, we'll get around to it. You can still use it, but it's like, and that kind of threw me off. I never really kind of got into it. I still have the, don't know what they're called, the gold guys.
Adeptus Sigmatus. No, the
Yeah.
Stormcast Eternals.
Yeah, I still have them sitting around. The corn stuff's being kind of hacked up and used for other bits and bobs. So I'm still game maybe at some point, but right now it's kind of, a bit too busy with 30k stuff to kind of look back at it. Even though I haven't really enjoyed the release, just from what I've seen is, people that have picked it up have enjoyed it, and I still think it's a good system. I still like the way that it plays, from what I've seen and from what I've read. I think that's fine, and I'm more inclined to go back and play this at some point, but it definitely has cooled down a lot for me, and like you're saying, the community itself seems to have cooled down. Now, Savage, you were never really big on it and didn't really plan on getting into it, and you didn't get into it. What's your thoughts on it right now?
They just didn't release anything after like that first release, really. Like no new models or anything for any of the other armies. So it's like you pretty much either play the fucking Sigmarites or Chaos, really. That comes in the starter set if you want something that's up to date.
Well, I mean, they did release stuff. They have released stuff up until, going back to they just recently did a whole thing of dwarves. Forgot what they are called, but Fire Slayers or something like that. They released a whole bunch of dwarf stuff. I mean, they have been coming out with stuff.
That's like the first stuff that they've really released. It's
Outside the Stormcast, yeah.
Yeah.
And the chaos stuff.
But they've come out
Yeah.
with rules and stuff as well, like more rules and stuff. Like I know they came out with something for like the death,
Yeah,
what do you
they've come
call it,
out with
death
like
faction and stuff. But that's all they
the
needed. It's just more rules because they had the models. I think that's what we were talking about. It's like they had the models there already, and then, you know, it, and it's hard for them to, I guess, throw money in onto a line where the models are already fantastic. Fantasy's models, hands down, better than 40k in my opinion.
There's some really, really sexy models. I suppose some of these new models are crazy.
Yeah, I think what they did a lot of was they re-released a whole bunch of stuff with new bases and stuff like that, and new packs. They didn't release a whole lot of new models, but they rebranded stuff, repackaged things, and I think that's really all they did need. But if you, I guess, kind of going in on Savage's idea, if you weren't already keen on the stuff that they already had, then you're not, and you didn't like the new two new armies that they brought when they released the Age of Sigmar, then it's not going to pull you in just rebranding the stuff that was already there. I don't think they needed to bring out a whole bunch of new stuff, but in like Savage's case, if he didn't like the stuff that's already there, then a rebrand isn't going to bring him into it.
No,
it
it's
just would
very
have been
true.
nice to like see updates to like some of the older stuff, like the Beastmen. So I always wanted to play them, but they just had really bad. They weren't the worst models in the world, but like all their I don't know, HQ sort of things were still metal.
Yeah, I mean it still hasn't been a year, has it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only
No.
just pushing like 6 months. So, we don't know what we might see like later on. Uh, this might happen, but it still comes down to our original thing. If it didn't, if doing this move didn't work out for them and hasn't drawn more people into it and hasn't created people to buy more stuff, the old stuff isn't gonna get like new models. There's no point for them to do it. They're not gonna make money. If Age of Sigma was like a gamble and it failed, then new stuff isn't gonna come from some of the older ranges, especially if those older ranges aren't selling now. If they release a new rules for Age of Sigmar and they're like, we play circle bases now, it's a little bit more kind of 40k-ish in the aesthetics of how you play on the tabletop, so you could get your beastmen and you can, play them like that, and you haven't already gone in and bought some more, then they're probably thinking like, then if we release new models, people probably are not going to even buy the new models. That's my
It's like
look on it.
it's like a catch-22 though. Like they're not going to release new models because the models they have aren't selling, but the models that they have aren't as great as like some of the newer stuff that's coming out. And if they did do newer models, like they could potentially sell more.
They could potentially sell more, but why risk it?
Yeah.
So it's like it's a catch-22 in a sense, but it's also one that they're not going to risk it if they don't know. And the same thing happens in 40k, or did happen in 40k, with like Dark Elder, and they're like, do we release it? Do we not release it? Because we have to do a whole line. We got to change the whole line. We got to redo the HQs, everything. And they're like, if we do it and people don't buy it, we're screwed. Fortunately, they went with the risk, and it sold. And Dark Elder is now a pretty big thing. The new models are amazing. But that was with 40k. You're having even more of a risk by updating a Age of Sigmar army because it's already coming from a weaker line.
And this is the thing, they were really pushing the new, like, say, the Stormcast Eternals and the Chaos, as well as bringing in like the Seraphon and the Duardin and all of the rebranded dwarves and ogres and things. But they, as we obviously talked about ad nauseum before, they gave you all the war scrolls for the older armies free. So yeah, it doesn't make it exciting because you don't want to get into a new army with new models, but you still can play all the things. And I was speaking of 40k, like when a new edition or one of the new box set comes out, like for instance with the Dark Vengeance, there was a whole lot of Chaos and Crimson Slaughter and Dark Angels releases around that, right? Like they do generally try and support the armies in the box.
And then later on is when other stuff comes out.
Yeah.
So we're still kind of at that later on period where more things will come from it, just not yet. And it's not something that can come out, super quick, but it's one of those things. I guess we'll see. Right now, it seems like Age of Sigmar is kind of slowing down, wrapping up, even in Games Workshop's just kind of their releases, and now a little bit more 40k stuff is starting popping up. Space Wolves, the board games and stuff are showing up more now. So we'll see what happens.
Big push for Heresy.
Yeah, I still hope that it kind of hangs around, and at some point I would like to get into it a little bit more, but I don't know what it's going to take to get me to kind of push into that aspect. I think it would have to be either two things. Either something happens locally where I want to go down and play it locally, or there's some sort of 40k vessel, but for Age of Sigmar, where I know you could just take the 40k models like you have done, but it takes away from it when you're already not playing the models that you're painted, and then they're not even represented by the correct figures in the thing.
Yeah, this is true.
So if those would be the two things that would make me want to go in and put some money down. Another thing that I would kind of be interested in would be more of a skirmish-based game, kind of like Mordheim, with Age of Sigmar. That could also interest me, where I only have to paint up 10 dudes or something. That could be kind of cool as well.
Because that was one of the rumors, that there were going to be these 3 different sizes of Age of Sigmar or Warhammer Fantasy, but that just didn't seem to happen.
Yeah, I would like that, and I think it's a less of a risk to throw down on, say, 10 models.
Yeah.
Any last kind of thoughts on Age of Sigmar, the state of it right now? We don't know a lot about it because we never got into it. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing of looking from the other video to this one, is we're not playing it right now. So it failed in some respect.
I definitely did get into it quite seriously for a while. My Blood Warriors were the first unit that I properly finished to a standard that I was actually happy with, and I was going down regularly to the Knights. A bunch of so it was kind of split between people, our local players, between fantasy players who just kind of gave up fantasy and Sigma, and those that carried on. But there was a few new players, and that carried on for a while. But now, anyone that was playing fantasy at our local shop is just playing 40k. So that's not a great sign.
I think, though, I can agree there, but I think at the end of the day, if you look at it this way, right? What compromises your Age of Sigmar army?
The box.
Yeah. And I have the box set as well. So we bought the same amount of stuff. Only difference is you played some games. Mine are sitting right behind me on the ground unassembled. Games Workshop doesn't see the games, they just see who bought what. It's very clear that I did a lot less to it, but in their eyes, we're exactly the same because we bought the exact same thing. You know what I mean? So it's it's hard to say it's a win or not. They got some money out of us. So I guess they're making money from their original set, but
and the new models and stuff definitely sold. I don't think they were I don't know if they were flying off the shelves quite so rapidly as other things, but I don't think they haven't got a massive warehouse full of stuff. I don't think.
I think at this point they're just trying to make the money off their releases. It's let's just try to make a profit out of these releases. But they need to get new players into the game, and it's not something that I see much anymore because I don't go to Games Workshop like I used to, and I would have definitely have seen, you go in there and you see the young players playing, so it's something that I don't know if that's the case or not. I would like to think so, but I don't think so somehow. So let's go to these comments. We're gonna just read the comments. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. We're not reading these to make fun of anyone or to... obviously some of them are a little funny to us. We're not having a go at anyone. We're just kind of bringing them up and just as a discussion of this is what people thought about it, and this is us responding after a time where we can... it's a decent amount of time to see, are they right? Are we right? Are we both wrong? What are we looking like at this point in time? So,
before we jump into the comments, I just want to say before we balance and say that we've not really played any, and people complain that we're talking about people that have played it or not played it. I would probably say I've played about as much Age of Sigmar with models as I have 40k with models. Admittedly, we played a lot more on Vassal Online because we're overseas, but yeah, just say we have played some before people get mad.
I don't really care if they get mad though, because our point isn't we're hardcore fantasy players. This is what we think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our idea is looking in on Games Workshop's changing to a different system. This is our opinion on why they did it and why we think they might have done it, and how we think people are reacting.
Yeah.
And our whole point last video was this maybe made us buy some fantasy stuff that we probably wouldn't have played before. Now we haven't played it, so now our stance on it is just different.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Personal opinions not being personal towards anyone.
Yet. Savage, start us off with the first comment. Just keep in mind with the first comment, I did already reply to this one on YouTube. I won't go into that one. A couple of things we might bring up when we talk about the comment might be the same, but this one I did actually reply to. The other one we didn't.
God, I need to put my reading glasses on for this one. It's from Sammy Sister. My only opinion about Age of Sigmar is that it seems just another rip-off of skirmish games. So much player versus player hate in this video. It seems like 40k players don't think that GW will mess up their game too in the future. I started to feel sick at 18 minutes as hearing you guys just bitching about other people wanting to continue their hobby. I will want to see your face in a few years when 40k gets same kind of change. You promise that you won't bitch about the change, right? What kept me in Warhammer Fantasy Battles was the scale of armies and the feel of epic battles. Even 40k where mostly just move, stop, shoot, win, especially when I played as Imperial Guards, but that was the reason I got me orcs. So I have little more stuff that could happen. This is really hard to try and read. People are not buying stuff because of GW's miniatures. People are not buying stuff because of GW's miniatures have been shit on Warhammer Fantasy Battle scene lately. Only different versions of already existing things, and even those come out occasionally, like every 2 to 3 months. That with the less support for some armies, Bretonia, etc., pretty much killed the community that actually wanted to pay for stuff.
I actually kind of do want to read the comment that I replied to that, because a lot of them is still...
I'll find it.
I have it up here for you. But I'm just bringing it up now. If Seb or Savage, you want to kind of... your thoughts on that comment?
A little bit better grammar.
yeah, the grammar definitely not help you there.
No.
Thing is, people say about the things being taken away from Bretonian and certain armies, but as we talked about in the video, with and again this player on player hate, we're not hating at anybody. That wasn't the idea. We may be taking a bit of a shot at people not willing to give something a go, and just pointing out the fact that you can carry on playing with the rules and things you have. It sucks that you don't get new models and new rules and things, but no one's taking your game away from you. And the reason Bretonian stuff started to trail off because people weren't putting the money into it. It's already too late when people are starting to take it away to say that I would buy stuff.
Yeah, it's before I read what I wrote, Savage, thoughts on that comment?
Probably just going along with what Seb said, pretty much.
Yeah. It's pretty agreeable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my one is was I can definitely see how anyone that was big into fantasy and continued to play with each edition to this point would be upset with the changes. As I stated in the video, my opinions are directed more at the players that have come out of the woodwork to complain about the changes, yet have not been supporting the system. For whatever reason is irrelevant, being Games Workshop's fault or not. If a company stops making money, they'll have to make a change. So many people hate on Age of Sigmar, yet have yet to play it. 40k itself went through a fairly big change recently with Unbound rules, and a lot of people, and a lot of what people are currently saying, is the same as what they did back then about it being unbalanced. I'm not hating on Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and feel like everyone should play what they want and let others do the same. This video series we post on occasion is really just a platform where we can say things that are inappropriate for regular Allies Index posts. We like to keep regular posts family friendly. This is where we can vent, so it is going to have a lot of opinion, and some people may be offended if they view these opinions differently. I do appreciate your posts and opinions. It was constructive and gave me more insight on how others feel about this. I do hope you can still enjoy Warhammer Fantasy Battle in some form, and if not, are able to find another system that will give you the epic battles you're looking for. So, basically I just agree exactly what Seb said in every possible way, because and the comment really doesn't the comment really doesn't make me change my opinions at all, and it's exactly what people are complaining about. Is like the thing that I find funny, and we'll see it in another comment, is that someone actually mentions in another comment later on, like basically saying, "Are you kidding me? Look at all the releases we've had." Yet this comment saying, "We're not getting any releases. Why would we buy it if we're not getting releases?" So
people aren't in agreement.
Yeah, no. Move on to the next one. So this one's from Eduardo Rivera, I think. Yeah. So, fans in quotations. Yeah, I realize you guys can't see me, so it's like will come with every possible excuse to justify why they didn't buy it and blame Games Workshop to why the game wasn't working. And from a certain perspective, they are right. That's why Games Workshop took the axe and did what they had to do. In fact, they did it right. So you can't convince these guys to buy it. Okay, modify the IP so you can get new customers, as the current ones hate you and will never buy your stuff because, excuses. So this one I think is actually agreeing with us, and basically saying like, if it's not working, change it. And I like the added power. It's like, yeah, the people that are playing this hate you anyway, so
you hear me, Seth?
Screw those guys. Yes, screw those guys, and just move on and get some new customers to play your game.
Definitely, it's the thing.
Seb.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, we lost Savage, but you can keep.
Oh dear. Okay, yeah. But yeah, like you said, if they're not going to like it, you need to try and do something new. And if people aren't buying stuff, you need to do something. That's just what needs to happen.
Yeah, I think
it's nice to see someone actually being reasonable and seeing that. And like you said, it always sucks when something comes to an end, but no one's stealing things away from you. They're just not giving you new stuff.
Yeah. So Seb, you want to go with your next one?
Yeah. So I've got Bigoon Big. What the fuck are you talking about? Age of Sigmar is just garbage. Not that one. That one's garbage. No, sorry, that's Star Wars. But yeah, that's simple and sweet.
Yeah, I don't know really what to say to that one. It's just opinion,
Yeah.
You can't say that a game is garbage as in a matter of fact way. This is just rubbish.
Yeah.
You back, Savage?
I'm back.
Okay. Just in time for you to read your next comment.
Oh, I missed the good one.
No, it wasn't. No, that wasn't. It was just saying that Age of Sigmar was garbage.
Oh yeah.
And
okay.
I enjoyed it, so I didn't find it garbage.
Exactly. So you're wrong. Sorry. I say after telling them it's opinion.
This one is from... What's wrong with your name? Dark Habsburg, I think. Fully agreed with you guys. The game stops generating profit. Should die. Otherwise, the company itself will die. Warhammer Fantasy Battles is a great game, but is simply too sophisticated to get started for the kids in the 21st century. The time has changed, and the old veterans who are rarely buying things but commenting a lot can always find excuses such as they've got a family so no spare time or money to hobby, etc.
Yeah, and this is just much more of the same of, on the same track as what we thought, in saying, like, if you're not going to be buying into the game anymore, and not saying, like, you don't have to, if you can't, then don't be surprised if things changed. The thing I like in this comment is he says, like, if you have a family, or you have kids, and you can't afford, or you don't have time to do it, what does it really matter if you have an old rulebook there and an old army, and then every now and then you and your friend can break it out and play a game? It's like, if you're not actively in the community, what does it matter if you don't have the current rulebook?
Yeah, and at the other end, addressing the Age of Sigmar is easier for the kids to get hold of and start playing for kids these days, because like we all the very loud vocal communities on the internet are generally like late teens and up to old people like myself and older, but like it's the kids going and buying models all the time with pocket money and money that the parents give them, not necessarily even keeping up with the hobby, but just buying loads of stuff and buying loads of paints and doing it. That's a lot of Games Workshop's money. That's what keeps that company going. Mm-hmm. We definitely help by buying stuff occasionally, but it's the kids that just get the stuff off the shelves.
Yeah, that's why they have their brick-and-mortar stores for the most part. I mean, Savage, you can attest to that. Like, how many times do we go into a Games Workshop and it's just full of kids?
A maxed out credit card that can answer that question.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were like big kids as well, just buying everything on the shelves, so, with our pocket money. But, it's one of those things where it's just like, I can definitely see the rage of older players, they log on their computer, the kids are asleep, and they got this time, they look at this thing and say, like, oh, fantasy's changing? That makes me mad, because 5 years ago, when I had a lot of free time and more money, I was playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles, and it was amazing. And you got that nostalgia in your head, like, that game was so good. Why the hell would they ever change that? Why would they do that? And then
businesses make money.
Yeah, well, and it's like, it was a good game, and it was great, and people were playing it and making money back then. But if you and a lot of other people like you are in a situation now where you can't play that, and you don't have the time or the money to put into the game, don't be surprised when it changes. And like we've all been saying, like Seb said, they're not taking your rules away. They're not coming to your house, taking your rule books, and making you play another game. You can still play it when you have time with the armies that you have.
That's the best thing about Warhammer Fantasy Battles now, is they're not supporting it anymore, so that rulebook is now current forever. You never have to buy another rulebook.
And there are also a bunch of editions. You could get older editions and change it up that way.
Well, they're whinging that Age of Sigmar, like, they changed the rules way too much. Like, well, Age of Sigmar is not Fantasy Battles. Fantasy Battles is now a discontinued line.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not supported anymore. So you have the rulebook. You're whinging that you don't have money. What are you going to do if they brought out a new rulebook?
Exactly. So next comment. This is my one, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Jasper Dorgard, whatever. So again, my one again starts in quotes. You need to keep buying things, or they won't keep it the same. Have you guys been following any, and I mean any, Warhammer Fantasy news? The last edition had books for Chaos, like Dark Elf and Demons, Bretonnian Beastmen, Chaos Dwarves, and so many other armies have not been updated in decades. Now, and you're telling me it's our fault that it's changing? Have you seen the prices for paint alone? I play Skaven, and it's not a lot of money just for paint. And it's a lot of money for paint. I doubt Age of, I think it's meant to say Shitmar, will still be alive in the next 2 years. Well, we're about, over 6 months in and it's still alive, so, I guess the jury's still out on that last part. But I like it that, like, this is a comment I was mentioning before. It says, the last edition had books for Chaos, like Dark Elves and Daemons.
Matt Damon's?
Yep.
It's the
And then it's, then full stop. Bretonnian, Beastmen, Chaos Dwarves, and so many other armies have not been updated in decades. But, like, it still goes through to the point of, like, like what Seb was saying, Bretonnians, if no one's buying Bretonnians, you're not going to get new Bretonnians. If they're taking models away from the range, it's probably a bad sign. It's unfortunate, but...
It didn't take models away from the most popular line.
Chaos Dwarves also were a Forge World thing, right? I mean, I know they were, at some point, Games Workshop, like, stores, but right now it's, like, Forge World. And, like, they're really nice models, and they have some really nice rules, so,
It's like a whole army, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good. But...
Forge World does all sorts of fantasy and now Sigma stuff.
Yeah, bits and pieces, but yeah, that was like a whole army. So yeah, I think we do follow basically all Warhammer related news, so that includes fantasy. We're definitely not blind to the updates, and I think at that point in time for Games Workshop, when they're trying to make money out of, and we're reiterating this a lot, they're trying to make money. At that point, when you're seeing your fantasy line die, right, and you're like, people aren't buying models, we're releasing new armies, people aren't buying them. Age of Sigmar aside, what would you do to make more money? You update the lines that are making money. If Chaos are selling, update it, because then the people will buy it, because they have to, in a sense, Release a new model, because if they're already buying your old models, they'll buy the new models. If they're not buying the old models, it's not guaranteed that they're going to buy the new ones.
And they did a big epic send-off. You had the end times was amazing, and the models and the lore and the things that came out of that were wonderful. And being called the end times should have given people a clue that something bad was going to happen to the world, or something different was going to happen to Warhammer Fantasy.
What were you going to say, Savage?
Just about how we're telling him that it's their fault that it's changing. Yes, it is your fault. If you brought Bretonnians 5 years ago and you bought the whole range, you're not going to need to buy anymore, right? So there's all that money that's gone in Bretonnians then, and no one buys it for a while. Going back to that same thing, they're not making money off that line. They're not going to support that line.
Yeah, and I can feel for you, because I can look at it in a sense of, I brought Bretonnians 5 years ago. Let's say I brought every single model in that range. I'm not going to buy anything else, because Games Workshop's not going to release anything else. If they release another Bretonnian piece, I would buy it. But if they don't, how can I give them more money if I've already brought the whole Bretonnian line? I can feel for you in that respect. And it does suck, and you're boned. There's nothing really that you could do in that sense. And it really just comes down to the community. And that's what we're talking to more, is the community, not a specific person. If you're buying all the Bretonnian stuff, good on you. But it takes a lot more than one person. You have to have a decent-sized group of people to buy into the army. So those people I definitely feel for. And, I don't know how else I could, be more sorry that that's happened.
I'm playing devil's advocate. There could be Bretonnian people that were just, I don't know, buying a box of knights every week anyway. But if everyone's not doing that sort of thing, it still doesn't look as popular.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's everybody's fault. We didn't buy fantasy. Other people didn't buy fantasy. No, actually, it's
fantasy
your
was
fault.
shit.
This person watching this video right now, it's your fault personally. No, of course.
Yeah, so that was... Moving on to the next one, Seb?
Moving on to the next one. Martin Susek. What the fuck? These guys just eat any shit that Games Workshop throw at them. Sad.
This guy's absolutely correct. We eat all the shit from Games Workshop.
Yeah, but they're throwing us stuff that we want to buy.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the ones that are buying it, and then they're supporting the lines that we buy because we're buying it because they're making money off us on the lines that they make.
Yeah, no, we are very positive to Games Workshop, and we've been criticized heavily, on this. I don't think it's a bad thing. If I like the product, if I like the company, it's cool, I'm having fun, you're having fun, Savage is having fun, we're all having fun. If you don't like the company, if you're not buying what they're selling, then I'm sorry, move on, find something else, find another hobby. Games Workshop killed it for you. I'm sorry. But yeah, we do eat this shit because we like it, we enjoy it.
But to balance that, like this is all comments on Ragehammer. Like there was always a part of even going back to the old days with the hammer. There's always been a Ragehammer element, and sometimes that was things in the community, but other times it has been at Games Workshop. We have criticized some of the things Games Workshop does. Generally, as you said, we like the stuff, we eat the shit, we're happy.
Yeah.
But we're not just completely blindly following them.
Yeah.
Do you mean I love Black Library, but I think the limited editions take the piss sometimes? Hey, I said a thing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you go back into, back in the Dice Troop days, when you look at the Hammer, the Rage Hammer segment, and then even the very, very old Dice Troop Battle Bros episodes, where we had, the drawn segments, we had us burning books of, that flyer supplement that they came out with. We had, we had a picture of us getting whipped by a dominatrix that had the Games Workshop logo as a head. Like, we are very, very well aware of Games Workshop, the shit that they do, and, and just the absolute bullshit that's involved in it. But we're also not dumb. We know why they do it. We don't just go, why would you do that? And then rage. We go, why would you do that? We rage a little bit, and then we think, and we actually think about it, and understand why they did that. Because if you don't understand why they're doing it, you're just raging mindlessly.
Also, while we're just gobbling on Games Workshop, Phallus, to go back to the previous comment about the cost of things like and paint and all sorts of stuff, things are expensive. It is an expensive hobby. I know people didn't like this in the last video as well, but it's an expensive hobby. If you can't afford to do it, you can't afford to do it. I can't afford to get a private jet and fly around the world. Mm-hmm. So I don't do that hobby. And I don't have a lot of money. I scrape together and I choose not to buy certain things, and you put the money aside and convince you to buy me things because I'm pretty.
There are a lot more expensive hobbies out there than Warhammer, though.
Yeah, and there are cheaper ones. Go to the cheaper ones.
I play guitar as well. I bought a guitar that cost me $2,500. I've never spent $2,500 in one. Hey, it was tax. It was my tax rebate.
Okay.
So it was alright. But I've never gone and thrown $2,500 at Games Workshop at once. I've spent maybe $300 at once. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's an expensive hobby. But most hobbies are expensive because it's a hobby.
And if you can't,
it's a hobby. You do something that you like if you can afford to fund that.
And there are cheap ways to go about it as well. It may not be the best way to do it, but you can still buy. I mean, granted, maybe you can't afford to buy it, but if you can, you can pick up a $15 model and paint it up or assemble it 1 month, and then next month spend $15 on paint up those little bits. If you really are that dedicated to the hobby but you can't afford it, there are definitely ways that you can get in cheaper. There definitely are ways that you can get in cheaper. And if you're not happy
we were 16, 17 when we got into it, and at the time I barely had any money. I was just saving money that I got here and there to go and buy a fucking Predator tank.
Yeah, well, I think at that point I was right after high school, and I was before you even had a job, right?
Yeah, I was jobless for a year, and I still managed to hobby off just doing jobs here and there to get money.
Yeah.
Favors for sailors.
And just like, and selling things as well. You know, there's a way to do it, and if you can't do it, then unfortunately you're gonna have to do something else. And I mean, I this happens every day, you know, in lots of different things, hobbies and just services. Yeah, I work for a company that you have to pay a premium for their service, and I have people complain to me on a daily basis that the prices are too high. Give me a discount. I can't afford it. And obviously I can't say this, but I feel like saying, like, if you can't afford it, don't. Cut it out. You know? And it's like, for that, it's like that for Warhammer. It's like that for a lot of things. Yeah, there's a lot of things that you pay for that you don't need, and if you can't afford them, you shouldn't stress yourself out about it, and you know, and try to keep going. Just cut it out for a little while. But
And if you need to try before you buy, there's Vassal. There are ways to try things digitally as well.
yeah, you know, it is what it is. Next one.
That's me.
Yep.
Where? I did that one. This. Oh, what is with people's YouTube names? Why can't they be simple? It's Die Discordishi Well. I'm pretty sure that's German, and I just butchered it real hard, but whatevs. In Age of Sigmar, a box of 5 figures costs £46. Yeah, this game
Euros,
will be really
isn't it?
popular. Oh, euros. The same thing. I don't know.
Not Australian dollary dues though.
Yeah, yeah. This game will be really popular and a great success. Sure.
Sure.
And I think that just goes into what we were just saying. If you can't afford it, obviously you're not going to buy it. But there are people that can afford it, and that's the whole thing about having an open market. You set your price for how much you think it's worth, and then people either buy it or they don't buy it.
Did they not see the Horus Heresy character series? And one model there is like £75.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other expensive stuff, but it all comes down to exactly what we're saying, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't think we really need to go into that, because we just did.
Yeah. Just one more thing to add. Sometimes people think that you should pay the amount for the material that something is made out of. So this much plastic is worth this much. But this much plastic that has all the like curated design and all the people working behind the scenes and sculpting it and creating something that is this shape and this look completely changes the price of it. It's like an uncut diamond and a cut diamond.
And it's not to mention the amount of people that are buying it as well. Games Workshop is a big company in terms of the hobby industry. Anything else, they're relatively small, and it's a niche, you know, base that they're selling to. You know, if you look at like things like, oh, I make smartphones, or, you know, I know something that like everyone basically has now. You know what I mean? It's still a niche kind of base that you're selling to, is wargamers. That also affects the price as well. If nearly everybody in the world was buying Warhammer, they could afford to make it cheaper because they're selling more. And that does affect the price too. So yeah, there's a lot of things that do affect the price.
Just one more thing while we're still on price is like quality of models as well. It's like you pay like, you know, £46 or whatever, euros, whatever, for a box of 5 guys. Those 5 guys look pretty damn good as well. Like, if you think you could sculpt better, go and buy the materials, because you know how much the price of the materials is. Make a cast and then cast it yourself. It's not that easy.
Yep.
It's like at my work, like people come in and they're like asking for a tattoo, and then we quote them, like, say we quote them $200, and they have a bit of a gripe about that because they paid $80 for this shitty little dragon on their leg. It's like, well, yeah, that's $80 of work, and look how shit that turned out compared to if you pay $200. Like, it'll turn out a lot better.
Yeah, and
Taking a cloaked pop out of the games there.
and it also goes down to like an open market, like it's a free market. Like you can say like, I will do that tattoo for $200. If they want it, they'll buy it. If they don't, they'll go somewhere else. It's the same thing everywhere. If you don't want to pay that much, don't. Don't buy it if you think
Yeah.
that's too expensive.
No one's forcing anyone to do any of this stuff. We go and sell our hours of our life for money to then buy things to make our life outside of work less painful.
Basically.
And the fact that, like, obviously we only do anything Games Workshop says, there are other miniatures out there that may not look as good or might be cheaper that you could proxy and use the rules. Like, that's a thing. That's another option.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other options. Let's keep chugging through this. So, I got the next one, right?
Yeah.
Armored Lemming. They may not have burned our books, but they pretty much did the next best thing, is not allowing people to play 8th edition in their stores, and for a lot of people that was the only way to play Warhammer. If they really wanted to allow the new generation to play without loads of 20 or 30s hanging around, which never fucking affected us when we were their age, so yeah, bullshit, then they should have just made Age of Sigmar the new third separate game. Who's playing Lord of the Rings? But also have an army book so the 2 new factions could also be played in 9th, so it would not be a waste of money. Boom, everyone wins. As for the whole square bases, it's regimental combat. Square bases are just logical. Nothing's wrong with the movement trays making that easier, though. I personally prefer the 1x5 strips. It's a nice middle ground to the issue of moving 20 plus models to a location function over form. You have to understand Warhammer has been around for 30 plus years. People have spent fucking decades on this game. Hundreds of their hard-earned cash to collect, paint, and build, only to have the game just cut down like this. And yeah, I hear you, the game's not been making loads of money for them, but that's through their own fucking actions. Think about it, the models have been getting more expensive, the rules wanted and favored bigger regiments, they put less models in the boxes, which in turn puts more people off. Less people means less new models made, and the lack of support for a lot of armies. Bretonian players, my heart goes out to you on this especially. It's a constant cycle of self-destruction that Games Workshop have over such a long time that Games Workshop has had over such a long time that of course their sales are going to be down. A lot of the fantasy players also went to 40k because they still wanted to enjoy a tabletop game with the same people and community with a similar universe and gameplay feel. Again, simple logic. This one is kind of interesting because a lot of the points, like, I agree but I don't agree, and I say this but I say that, and there's not a lot that I can really argue here because they do bring up a lot of good points. I'm
going to hit a couple.
Okay, go ahead.
Alright, I just want to start off on this one before I forget it, where their models have been getting more and more expensive. It's just inflation.
Yeah, everything
Really,
is more
like,
expensive.
Everything gets more expensive. Like, if you're, like, been around for this 30 plus years, you should know what inflation is by now. If you're trying to school us on, other things saying that people have been around for 30 plus years in this hobby. Yeah, we know. But
It's
yeah,
popularity
it's
and
inflation.
economics, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
All these, and that affects the numbers of models in the boxes. That's not the models in separate boxes. Not a separate issue. It's the exact same issue. It's just the price and value and market.
Yeah.
People whinge less about the cost of fuel than they do about the cost of models. I swear.
Yeah, I like to also point out they do mention stuff like Games Workshop making the rules so people would have bigger regiments and things like that. I feel like, and this is speculation, I feel like that comes down to when they're looking at their numbers and it's like, oh, fantasy's in the toilet. It's going down, no one's buying stuff. What do we do? Okay, let's release another regiment book, or whatever they're called, codex for fantasy. Side note, in my head, I like to think Games Workshop's actually like that. They're like, what do we call the fantasy, the codex fantasy ones? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so they're like, okay, let's release another book. Okay, well, there's, say $50 we get from the book. But then what? They're still going to keep the same models. Okay, then let's think about it this way. Let's release another book. Let's adapt the rules and let's make it so that bigger squads give you an advantage. So let's move the game towards having bigger squads. So now you're sitting there with your 30-plus-year-old army that you haven't put a dime into since you first brought it, and you're just going from rulebook to rulebook. And now they're like, okay, bigger regiments. That's the way to go. Well, now you got to buy new models. Like the rule changes. It is a way for them to make more money. It's straight up. It's a way for them to make more money. Like. That was their way to try to bring back fantasy, to try to bump their numbers up in fantasy before they just change it to Age of Sigmar. Let's make it so people have to buy more models to add into their regiments to make them bigger. They did that. They probably got a little boost in money, but it's not a way that you could. It's not something that's gonna keep growing. It's a quick fix. Because once I buy that extra unit to put into that regiment and make a bigger regiment, I'm done. Like, it's all kind of just part of it. It's like the rules change because they're trying to get you to buy more stuff. That's simple. That didn't work, so now they have to change from that. And I guess you're kind of right. In a sense, it can look like it's just a downward slope. They're trying to make these changes, it's pissing people off, and it's not working. And that can be correct. They could have fucked themselves. It still doesn't change why they brought out Age of Sigmar. Like no, they're not making money. It doesn't. If it was their fault to begin with, let's assume Games Workshop, it's your fault. You screwed it over. People don't want to buy your stuff because of the mistakes that you did. That's happened. That's been and done. They still got to do something to keep this line going. Age of Sigmar.
One thing they did say, which was very sad though, and is one thing I hadn't thought about, is that if it is true that you can't play fantasy in a Games Workshop shop anymore.
Yeah, that would be absolutely true, because they let you play in their store because it's free advertising for them. Did I go over this last time when it was like, you play in their store because if you don't know anything about Warhammer and you walk past the Games Workshop, you go, oh, what is that? And you walk in and you take a look. If they're not playing a game that you currently sell, that's discontinued, why would you let that in your store?
Yeah, I'm just saying that is a sad fact. But there are, again, maybe not in your local area, but there are other local hobby and gaming stores that, there's nothing wrong with playing it at our local shop that isn't Games Workshop.
Well, that's, goes down to, the last thing they say as well, which is also what I wanted to mention, was how they say a lot of the fantasy players also went to 40k because they still wanted to enjoy a tabletop game with the same people and community with the similar universe and gameplay feel. If there's people that are changing from fantasy to 40k because fantasy you can't play in the stores anymore, but you still have a whole group of people, they said a community, why don't you all just set up, it's somewhat like one of you's got to have a house that has enough room to set up a 6x4 table to play on. When Toxic used to live over here, all of our friends, we all wanted to play at Games Workshop, but the closest Games Workshop to us at the time was an hour and a half or hour drive away from us, and we were all young kids, and only a handful of us had a license, and we weren't making much money, so we didn't want to waste a bunch of money on fuel to go and play Games Workshop. So we used to rotate people's houses with 6x4 tables and play there.
And we played on a lot of things. We played on my kitchen counter, the table outside my house. We played at your house. We played on that train table. Marx's house. We played in his garage. We just found tables to play on. Went to Bunnings, a hardware store. Put in $20 to buy the wood to make a table. And you just find a way. If you have, unfortunately, sometimes you're in a situation where you don't have a community, and if you get cut off from Games Workshop, that is sad, but it's not the end of the world. In my town, very small town, no Games Workshop in sight. I gotta go 3 hours to get to a Games Workshop. There's no miniature store I can play in. That closed down. But what the community did is now they have a night of the week where they go around to someone's house and play at someone's house. uh, you gotta just make it work for you. You gotta adapt to your situation. Just because things change, you can't just then sit around and cry. Nothing's gonna, because that's not gonna help the situation at all.
Also, why? Again, we love 40k and that's what we know. But like, why change to 40k when you could change to Age of Sigmar, which like the rules of 40k and Age of Sigmar are different, but they're not miles apart, and they're probably as different as 40k and fantasy are. Well, maybe not quite that much, but you could use the armies you already have, or you could try these new things out. If you're gonna change system, why not change the system that's replacing your system?
Because you want to come to the winner, Seb.
Yeah, unless it's just a matter of principle, or and then you're stopping your own gaming fun for your own problem.
Yep. We just lost Savage again, but we'll move on. Last thing I want to mention in this one is they put in saying if they really wanted to allow a new generation to play without loads of 20 to 30 somethings hanging around, then they should have, blah blah blah. When did we ever bring that up? That's the first time I've heard in that whole thing, Games Workshop having an issue with older players playing in their Games Workshop store and interacting with the younger kids. When was that ever a problem?
I think we may have mentioned it like for new players getting in, like the kids want to play together, and maybe the older people may scare the kids off a little bit. But I don't think we made a massive issue of that.
Because Savage and myself, we went in a lot. I went in a lot more than he did, and I went in there, kind of days on end at times, and I had a good rapport with the younger kids in there, and teaching them the rules. And the Games Workshop stores, the way they're set up now is you have one guy in there. One guy can't teach the rules to all these kids coming in. So they want a couple of older people in there to teach the rules and to organize games. When they have events, it's up to the older people to kind of run those events. And I've done that. Savage has done that. That's kind of how it works, and that's how the communities in Games Workshops work. And that's not coming from one localized experience. I mean, I've gone to a lot of Games Workshops, and it's the same thing. The younger kids kind of go to the older people because they do have the experience and stuff.
And I think that somewhat that vary in some places. Like I like a place that the kids sort of seem to stick together, and the older guys seem to stick together. Like they will help each other out, and we do interact and stuff, but. It's just one of those things. Maybe we mentioned that some older people could be putting some of the kids off, but
at a local store I could see that, but at a Games Workshops only have 1-2 tables now. Like this, they're really small stores, so you have to interact. Otherwise, you're not going to get a game in. Savage, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Just wait for my computer to load up again.
All right, not a problem. Yeah, so I guess we'll move on from that one. I think, Seb, you're next.
Yeah, so from Vicious 6661982, because there's going to be a lot of Viciouses. Bullshit. I started when I was 13 because I saw people 20 plus, 30 plus years old playing it, and I wanted something serious. If the new generations can't handle Warhammer rules, it's because they are fucktards. Back then, Warhammer was even more difficult. You needed to estimate for charge, etc.
What's the end on that? Sorry.
You needed it, but back then Warhammer was more difficult. You need to estimate for charge, etc.
Basically, they're saying that we said that it's hard to get into with the rules being confusing. Games Workshop was going to dumb it down to make it easier for the younger generation to play. This person's saying that's crap. When I was younger, I wanted it to be harder. It was harder, and I still got into it. That might be true for you, but it's just kind of logic. If it's harder, it's going to be more difficult for people to get into it. I mean, that's with anything.
And especially people having an attitude towards people finding the game more difficult, but even though they want to get into it, and declaring those people fucktards, which is not a very nice thing to call people.
Yeah, if that's the community where they're like, if this dumb little snot-nosed kid doesn't know how to play this game, then he doesn't have any place being here. He shouldn't be playing with us. Yeah. If that's the attitude, if that is the attitude, then in all seriousness, good. I'm glad you're not playing in Games Workshop anymore, because you had no place being there. if that is your attitude towards younger players coming in and playing this game, good. I don't want to see you in a Games Workshop. You know?
Yeah, that's parents' job to make the kids piss themselves.
In a nice way. But
That happened.
not going there. And again, but it also could be a product of the times. You know, people do say that nowadays things do get dumbed down for people, and people have their tablets, their iPhones, smartphones, and stuff. You know, it's a generalized statement that people do think that today's culture and today's generation is, you know, maybe going downhill. Not my belief, but it's kind of out there.
Yeah.
You know. And if Games Workshop thinks that, if they see that, then yeah, they do that. Oh, exactly. That's, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know, and if that's just how it has to be. You know, Games Workshop for a very, very long time was a company that kept their head in the sand and didn't keep up with the times. You know, and now they have an updated website. You know, they're doing all this online stuff. You know, they're just kind of trying to keep up with the times.
And the new board games of excitement.
I mean, you look at anything. Games are being streamlined and dumbed down. You know, you look at games from back then; they were a lot more difficult. But the games today are still fucking good. You know, yeah.
And there's nothing stopping you like bringing in your own rules. Like obviously not in a Games Workshop, but in your own games. If you want to try and expand upon this and make it more tricky with some homebrew rules, that you can have a go.
Yeah. You know, it just goes back to basically what we've been saying. You know, it's you still have access to the rules. That's not going to change. You know. But move on to the next one, or do you have any other comments on that one?
No, I think I'm done on that one. We can kind of it's kind of bringing up the same intergenerational thing and showing just a negative side of that.
Savage, you're up.
Oh, give me 2 seconds.
Pretty sure this is the good one, so.
Yeah, it's Skype's just being a little bit slow. This one comes from Fine War, Finny War. I don't know. Oh, I need to prepare myself. I've been waiting the whole day to do this one. Oh.
You couldn't have had anyone better to do this one. This is why we have them.
Age of Sigmar is a shit game. Games Workshop is dead to me. They're dead!
They're dead to him, Seb! They're dead!
They're all a bunch of fucking cockroaches!
They're gonna sleep with the fishes tonight.
There's one thing that I can really say about this one. If they're dead to you, then good. You know, move on. Find something else that, if you don't enjoy it anymore, and you want to not buy Games Workshop stuff, that's your decision. You know? I'm sorry, it didn't work out the way that you wanted it to, or you can't adjust to the new format, the new game, or you feel like you can't enjoy playing with the older rules now. I'm sorry, but move on. Find another hobby that makes you happy. I mean, in all honesty, and it's a bit extreme, but
Vote with your feet. People are buying Age of Sigmar stuff because they want to buy Age of Sigmar stuff. If you don't want to buy Age of Sigmar stuff, you can help support not supporting Age of Sigmar by not supporting it.
Yeah, go support another company that's alive to you.
I see dead companies.
I just it's a little gravestone in that person's house, just Games Workshop.
It's just a mini version of the Stormcast Eternal outside Warhammer World.
Yeah.
On a gravestone.
With an
I
urn
could
of
guarantee that this person has maybe bought a little bit of models from Games Workshop before, not too much, or hasn't played in fucking years and is just jumping on the bandwagon.
I'm gonna go to the other extreme and say this person's currently playing.
Yeah, all that.
There's been times that I've been like, fuck Games Workshop, boycott Games Workshop when they did that like fucking trade embargo thing where you couldn't buy out of your own country and they forced you to buy in your country and we couldn't buy overseas and get a little bit of cheaper deal. I was like, fuck Games Workshop, not buying anything, you know. And like a month later, I was buying stuff, like because I calmed down and I was like, well, I can see why they don't want me going elsewhere to buy this shit, you know. I'll support local.
Yeah, and with that did unfortunately affect some people badly, but it was for the company's own good, for their business plan, the way they want to do things,
the crazy
rightly
thing,
or wrongly.
The crazy thing that happened there, right? So, back when I lived on the Gold Coast, Savage still does. We had one store, and it was like kind of like a puzzle store, I guess. And they had some Warhammer that we kind of bought stuff from, and it was like they had a lot of really outdated stuff, and then every now and then they would have some new stuff. So we were like done with that. We're like, we don't want to go there. The people didn't respect us either, you know. And eventually, I think they closed down as well. And so we bought from Wayland Games, great site in UK. They have really great prices. They're really good, friendly, great to work with. And we bought all our stuff through Wayland. And we brought really big orders because it was cheap, and we'd kind of buy orders together as well. And then Games Workshop put that, like, I guess kind of like, I don't know what it's called, trade embargo, whatever it was called, that stopped us from doing that. And then now we had to we had like one choice, and it was you buy from someone local or you buy from Games Workshop. So for a while we were like, well, what are we gonna do? I was pretty upset, and I was like, I'm just not gonna buy Games Workshop stuff. This is my last order. That's it, done. Because they had like one point where Wayland's like, you got one chance this date, it cuts off. Obviously that didn't happen because I still want to buy stuff.
Such a smack addict. This is my last order. The company's dead to me, but I have to have this last one.
Yeah, so we found a store, probably about a couple of hours drive away in New South Wales, where we could buy.
That was like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was a decent drive. So we could either buy online, pick up. We could drive down, get it when we wanted to, or they could send it up to us. But the stock was never really there, and it was kind of like a bit flaky, and sometimes you get it quickly, other times you wouldn't. So eventually, I'll just buy from Games Workshop's website. I'm not saving that much by doing it this way. I'll just buy from Games Workshop's website. Guess what happened shortly after? Games Workshop sees a spike in sales from the Gold Coast from their website and think, maybe we can open a store here because people are buying. We see the data of people buying through us, and they opened a store, and we got a place to play, and we got a place to go and buy models, because now, instead of buying from overseas, people are buying them from Games Workshop, and they can keep track of their numbers, and they opened a store, and something good happened. Doesn't really have anything to do with what we're saying now, but,
No, but it does. It's people don't see, and I hate, this all sounds a bit wanky, but people don't see the big picture. And often, even when we've had issues, like what you said about the trading bug and stuff, we don't always see the bigger picture. Mm-hmm. There's generally always a sound or not business economical reason why something is priced this way, why you buy it this way, why it's packaged this way, why this is the way you can get it. And like you said, good things can come from this. Yeah, the company carries on.
Yeah, that was a good thing. There's a local store on the Gold Coast now. Like Savage was saying, for the longest time, we had to drive an hour, to go to a Games Workshop. And all it took was for Games Workshop to see that there is a community there because they saw the online orders and they could keep track of where they were sending packages out, and they opened a store, and it was great.
Person who wrote that comment, obviously wears a butt plug, because I'm going through all their liked videos, because I'm a creeper, and they're all just like, they're all rant videos, but he has like a couple of reviews of the Tau Codex from not like...
So it's just kind of like a masochist in a sense, where it's like, I just want to watch stuff to make me angry.
Yeah, but he's liked stuff from a Tau like Codex review that's come after like we've posted this video, so obviously GW wasn't that dead to him if he was...
So I was right, he probably still does keep playing.
Yeah. He's checking out 40k.
Yeah. Join the winners.
There's still
Okay.
Games Workshop though.
Yeah.
Alright, last one.
So yeah, it's my one, right? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, here we go. I get the long ones. Michael Go something. Michael. Yeah, there you go. I've been playing Warhammer for 26 years now. I started playing the thrilling Death on Reich roleplay campaign a few years later and was immediately hooked on the marvelous world of Warhammer. I play 40k, Blood Bowl, and many other non-Games Workshop related games like Axis and Allies, Zombies, and Machiavelli? I don't know.
Machiavelli?
I don't know, yeah. The thing is, I don't mind Games Workshop bringing out a new kind of game. Hell, back in the 80s and 90s, they had tons of games. Dark Future, Hero Quest, Trolls, Mordheim, Rogue Trader, Necromunda, and so on. And weren't just Warhammer Workshop, but actually Games Workshop. The thing that bothers me the most is that people keep ranting on about how the old players keep raging about Age of Sigmar. Like you said in your clip, I haven't even played it. But again, I'm not raging at Age of Sigmar. I'm furious at Games Workshop for blowing up my precious Warhammer world. Couldn't they have gone and said, right, that's it, we're done with the Warhammer world as it is, and keep the bloody thing and move on, and make Age of Sigmar or whatever they want besides Warhammer Fantasy Battle? That's why I'm furious. I, and many others with me, have spent literally months of my life, roleplay and battles combined, immersed in that world, and then they decide to blow it up? Maybe it's the age playing, and I'm getting a bit older and more nostalgic, sentimental. I told this to a friend of mine and said, and she said, "So what? Carry on in your thoughts." Then I said to her, she's the biggest Game of Thrones fan, I imagine that middle of Season 7, Episode 5, the Khaleesi is riding her dragon. Oh, I guess this could be kind of a spoiler. I don't know. I haven't read this comment. But Khaleesi is riding her dragon and it's attacking King's
speculation.
Landing. Okay. I don't know. So yeah.
It's just speculation. It's fine.
Okay. It's attacking King's Landing. The Starks are on the verge of rising up in the rebellion again, and so on. And then suddenly, boom! The whole world of Game of Thrones explodes, just like that, leaving nothing behind. The screen goes black, and it reads the end. Oh, please tell me I've changed it over the screen so that people can see Seb's face. Yep, they can. The end. She told me she would be horrified, and she understood how I felt. So yeah, that's it. No pointing fingers at Games Workshop for creating Age of Sigmar, but a genuine big-ass middle finger for destroying my favorite fantasy world. Seb, I'm gonna throw this straight over you because it seems like you have the most to say about this. And honestly, you're probably the biggest lore person when it comes to. We're all big into lore, but you're probably above us when it comes to lore. So yeah.
So the Warhammer fantasy world and lore is a beautiful, wonderful thing. It is somewhat a shame that it came to an end, but we had one of the biggest upheavals and move on in story and lore that there had been in a ridiculous amount of time in the end times. And people really got behind the end times and enjoyed the end times. It was called the end times. It meant something was going to end. But just to kind of jump onto this Game of Thrones thing for a second, just to warn everybody, the books will end, the show will end, G.R.R. Martin will die at some point, possibly before writing the last book. Like, Games Workshop wrote the end. They've created your world, they've told stories in your world, and then they told the story about the end of the world. It's not episode 5 of season 7, suddenly they pulled the plug. There was a big gurgling and swirling process as it ended up like going down the plug hole. There was a definite ending.
Yeah. The thing that I think as well is like, the story hadn't changed since then. You've been playing for 26 years. You've been playing in that world with no changes in 26 years. Forget about it and keep fucking playing. What's your problem? Forget about the end times and keep fucking playing. Are you fucking kidding me? Nothing changes. So many games don't change. The worlds are not real. They end at some point and you can keep enjoying them. Right now we're playing 30k. 30K changing to 40K. The Horus Heresy ended. We're still making our own stories in it. We're still having fun and creating our own campaigns and enjoying that. You can still do that. What's your problem?
Because they blew it up my world.
Damn
was
you!
what? How do you think the people of Alderaan feel?
This is honestly one where I don't have much sympathy for, because you're saying you don't care about Age of Sigmar. All you care about is the fluff and the lore. And like, that is literally the thing that you have the most control over.
Complete control in your own mind.
And
Here's what happens, right? In this thing we call life, you start off, you go through life, you die. That is your story.
Mhm.
Everything has a beginning, a middle, and end times. If they just blew up the world, or no, sorry, wait, let me read this comment again. I had a point to this. Like where he says, where fuck is it? If they just left it instead of blowing up the world, how much more pissed off would you be if they just discontinued the line? You don't get an ending to your story. You don't. That you just gotta pretend, make one up. Just
turn off the light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could you imagine how much more pissed people would be? They're whinging that they got an ending to their story.
Yeah. And it's exactly what I was saying. Like, nothing is stopping you from still role-playing in the original universe. Like,
Which is a beautiful place. Like, that's true.
Could you imagine if Star Wars Episode 5 was the last one in the series? They didn't do 6. You found out that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's dad. And
Spoilers?
it's this big build-up.
Jesus.
Oh, fuck up, old man. You find out all this stuff, and they're setting up the next movie, and then it never comes out.
yeah. I don't know what to say on that one, because, like I said, for 26 years you've been playing in the same universe, no changes. You can keep doing that. Just forget about it. And, I had a point what I was going to say is, thinking this from the perspective of the Total War team, who's making Total War Warhammer, like, fantasy, right? They started making this game, set in this universe, and then Games Workshop blows it up. Their response to it is, well, we make history games anyway, so who cares? It's just set in another timeline. You know, that's a huge project with, millions of dollars on it. It's not you and your mates role-playing Warhammer Fantasy who can do exactly the same thing. Oh, you want to do a Warhammer Fantasy campaign? Let's set it before the world ended. It's like you want to do a Star Wars roleplay. You want to play some Star Wars, but let's not set it. Let's set it in the Old Republic. I want to set it there. I want to create my stories then.
Yeah, I want to be on Alderaan.
Yeah, I want to roleplay a very specific roleplay where we all play different houses on Alderaan, and we're all it's like.
I do hope no one ever blows us up one day.
Yeah, but you can still do that. It's gone. Alderaan's gone. It ain't coming back. But you can still, in the lore, you can still have your fun.
I don't care
with
about
it.
the Death Star. I just want my Alderaan.
It was like a million voices screaming out at once and suddenly silenced. But like,
the biggest thing,
Oh, go on.
the biggest thing is that they got an end, and they're pissed off that they got an end. Now there's rumors of like 40K having an end times, and we're all fucking pumped about it.
Exactly.
We're getting progression to a story that hasn't progressed since since we got into it. Like, the Emperor's just been fucking. Emperor's been a vegetable in a chair for like the last fucking however many years,
And
doing nothing.
Yeah. And now there's
Chaos
rumors
has been
something
doing
could happen.
nothing. Yeah, like nothing has progressed. Now there is going to be progression, and we're here to see that. Maybe they end 40K, maybe they don't.
Yeah.
Progression.
Maybe they change the rules. Are we gonna cry? No, because like we may be on. Like if the game isn't great, we might not do that. But we'll have all our books and all our models, and we can carry on doing what we want to do. And if we do want to carry on with Games Workshop and getting stuff, we'll buy stuff.
Yeah, and granted, if they destroy the 40k universe, right, I'll be upset. I don't read books that aren't to do with 40k. Like, I don't really pay attention to any other fantasy universe this much as 40k. If they get rid of the 40k universe, and it's like, it's gone, it's just fragments now, and you pass between little fragments and stuff, I'd be upset. I would.
But
However,
the writers did their job.
yeah, but however, I would be upset, but if I wanted to do a 40k roleplay, which we've done plenty of, I can still set it in the era that I like. I can still play 40k the way I want to, because I have all the rulebooks still. I can still play in that universe. I still have my armies, I still have my models. If I want to go further back, I can still do 30k stuff. I can still read about that. And I get to play the new stuff as well. If I want to explore this new universe, this absolutely new thing that Games Workshop's saying, hey, guess what? After all this time, here's some new stuff you can read about. Here's some new stuff you can love just as much as the old stuff if you give it time. You know? Okay, yeah, I'll do that. I'll try it. If I don't like it, it's a shame. It just gets me. It's like, it hasn't changed. It's like, I'd be a little bit different, maybe, if for those 26 years that this person was saying, the story has been ever evolving. But it honestly hasn't been. There's been small changes, but it hasn't really been evolving that much. And you can't tell me that you've been role-playing the current as it's changing. You know what I mean?
This month, oh look, ogres have appeared. Okay, ogres have always existed now. Let's just bring that in.
Yeah.
Same with Tau.
I don't know. This last one was really frustrating, and I honestly hadn't read that comment until just then. So I'm glad that was our last one. This is a long episode, but
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah.
but yeah, it's been good. I mean, any final words before we kind of end this and kind of put Age of Sigmar to bed? And
Wait, we're ending this? No! 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 You can't do that! You can't do that!
Yep. Exactly.
Just try.
Oh wait, no, I meant to whinge after we end it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't get what the ending meant.
Alright. But, yeah. So this has been, episode 4 of, what's this show called again? Battle Bros, there you go. Which basically is part B of Rage Hammer. We got a little bit heated, and we do kind of apologize there. We did try to be a little bit calm, but, you know, I think there'll be some people enjoy it at least.
Personal opinions, not taking personal shots. Please remember that if you get to this part of the video.
Yeah. If not, then don't worry. 6 months later, we'll do another video reading your comments. Once again, with me today has been Seb.
It's been a pleasure.
Savage.
What's up?
I'm Toxic. Check out alliesandnext.com for more geeky gaming goodness. And as always, have a good one.
Bye.